Kamala Harris has certainly created waves since her rise to the national stage, but not always for the reasons one might expect. Her early career as a prosecutor in California brought her under fire for tough-on-crime policies that many felt disproportionately affected marginalized communities. Fast forward to her vice presidency, and it's clear she struggled to create a coherent policy platform that resonates with the average voter. Instead, Harris has leaned heavily on personal anecdotes, stories about her working-class upbringing, her parents' immigrant roots, and even the fact that she once worked at McDonald's. But beyond these narratives, critics argue that she hasn't delivered on meaningful policy initiatives. Her vague promises on issues like climate change, immigration, and healthcare leave many wondering, what does Kamala Harris actually stand for? The stakes are high, and with her positioning as a potential future president, voters are asking for more than just her personal story. They're looking for substance, and some are beginning to question whether it exists. So why do people still want to vote for her? The power of identity. Politics. Harris is the first woman of color to serve as vice president, and for many, that's a big deal. Her very presence in the role is seen as symbolic progress in a country still grappling with racial and gender inequality. Voters from marginalized communities often see Harris as their candidate, someone who understands their struggles. The power of representation shouldn't be underestimated, and for some, it's enough to overlook the lack of clear policy direction. She's the less worse option. A large portion of Harris's base might not even be enthusiastic about her. Instead, their vote for Harris, or a Biden-Harris ticket, is more about voting against someone else. For these voters, especially after the tumultuous Biden years, Harris wearing a mask represents a safer, more palatable option. This is particularly true for voters who see Trump as a threat to democracy and civil rights. So even if Harris doesn't have a defined policy agenda, she becomes the default choice because the alternative, in their eyes, is much worse. Blind party loyalty. For some Democrats, the party line is everything. It doesn't matter who's on the ticket as long as they have the Democratic stamp. Harris benefits from this loyalty. The Democratic base, especially among older, lifelong Democrats, will likely support her, not because of who she is or what she's done, but because she represents the party's interests. These voters are more focused on keeping the Republican Party out of power than scrutinizing Harris's own merits. The halo effect. There's a theory in psychology known as the halo effect, where a person's positive traits in one area tend to overshadow weaknesses in other areas. Harris's supporters might be engaging in this cognitive bias. They see her history-making rise, her confident demeanor, and her charismatic public speaking, and they're willing to forgive or outright ignore her lack of meaningful policy positions. But let's be honest, the other side is asking real questions. Where are her policies? What exactly does she stand for beyond identity and party loyalty? Critics argue that her lack of a clear, consistent message has led to a leadership void. In interviews, she's stumbled when pressed on specific issues, leaving viewers unimpressed with her grasp of policy. Even the moments that should have bolstered her image, like her assignment to handle the border crisis, have ended in what many call failure. Furthermore, some accuse Harris of manipulating her identity to score political points, rather than using it to advance real change. She champions herself as an African-American leader, yet many within the Black community remain skeptical of her, pointing to her prosecutorial record and her unwillingness to challenge systemic issues head-on. As we approach future elections, Harris's viability as a candidate remains in question. The Biden-Harris administration is facing significant challenges: rising inflation, international crises, and declining approval ratings. And while Biden carries the bulk of the responsibility, Harris's performance as vice president hasn't done much to reassure voters that she's ready to take the helm. Democrats are at a crossroads. Do they double down on Harris, hoping that she can rally the base and swing voters with her identity and charisma? Or do they begin to distance themselves, recognizing the potential electoral liabilities she brings to the table? So, why do people want to vote for Kamala Harris? Is it about her identity, her perceived lesser evil status, or something else entirely? Let's discuss. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Whether you support her or not, it's time to dig deeper into what drives political loyalty in modern America, especially among the far left.